Welcome to another episode of the Positive Change Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Richard Harmer. And in this podcast, we talk about challenging the status quo and liberating new potential to make positive change for the world. This particular podcast, I'm super excited about because I've done something a little differently, and I'm going to reveal a bit more about my own inner psychology as part of this particular podcast, talking about the personal mantras that I live by. Now, the key thing here in this podcast is we're going to talk about your inner cheer squad. So if this is something that's of interest to you, about how my mind works and how I sustain positivity and enthusiasm when I'm embarking on any change, then listen in. Let me know what you think. Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Harmer, and you're about to discover new ways to go from overwhelm to thriving in your business and in your life by following your passions, pursuing your unique life purpose, and stepping fully into your infinite potential. You deserve to live your best life, a life filled with all of the clarity, courage, and commitment you need to be happy and to make a positive impact on the world. So get ready, because this podcast challenges society's expectations for what it means to be successful in life and in business, and invites you to grow beyond outdated assumptions for defining who you are. Welcome to the Positive Change Podcast. So welcome to another episode of the Positive Change Podcast. To set the scene for this particular podcast, I have people ask me quite often, hey Richard, how do you stay positive and optimistic and enthusiastic and engaged and future-orientated and excited about change? And well, it's my job, obviously, and I've trained myself how to do it, but there's more to it than that. And I really want to spend this podcast doing something a little different and telling you about my own inner cheer squad. That inner cheer squad that gives me the positive change mantras I need to keep going whenever I feel change might be getting hard. Now, this morning, I got out my journal, and I journal often, and I have a journaling process. It's inside the Positive Change Maker program. I talk about it, but it's the don't stop journaling process. It's pretty simple, really. You get a pen, you get a piece of paper, you put your pen to paper, you start writing, and you don't stop for 20 minutes. But I asked my inner cheer squad this morning, what are the mantras for positive change that you think are the most important that keep me up and about and going? What are the most important positive change mantras you think I should share with my audience that could also help them stay positive and optimistic and enthusiastic and inspired and always motivated with positive energy to engage and pursue any change? So I put my pen to paper and I started writing, and this is what came out. So there's 20 of them, but I'm going to just read, in essence, my journal entry. It's a little scrappy, so bear with me here. But this is the fundamental positive change mantras that I adopt for myself to make sure that I'm always seeing opportunities and possibilities within any change. Well, that might be the 22nd or 21st positive mantra here. But okay, number one, proceed until apprehended. Now, there's this saying of we can either seek permission or ask for forgiveness, but that's based on a premise that somebody is the ultimate authority to tell you whether you're doing the right thing or not, and that is just not true. People are so focused on doing other things that matter to them, they're most likely not even paying attention to what you're doing, particularly in the beginning of change. They most likely won't even notice that you're trying to make a positive change or do something different. So proceed until apprehended. And then most importantly, when you're apprehended, say why not and just keep on going. Number two, just start. You start change by starting something. The first step is always the hardest step to take. It deserves an absolute cheer squad of celebration anytime you have the courage to start something new. Just start. Start by starting. Mantra number three, learn by doing. No one ever knew how to make the change they wanted to make at the beginning of the change. You don't have to know everything before you start. Now, I once did this assessment early in my career when I was in a sales role. an assessment that told me what my greatest limitations to being the world's best salesperson was. And what came out is I'm a procrastinator, or what it told me at the time was I'm a procrastinator salesperson, which basically means I needed to know each and every single thing about the product I was about to sell in order to go and sell it to another person. The thing is, you can never predict what the customer is going to want to know about the product you're selling. So all of that sales prep was simply a waste of time. You don't have to have all of the answers because you don't even have all of the information about what the change is all about yet. Ultimately, you can always change direction if you realize you're heading down the wrong track. Most importantly is to learn by doing. Don't learn by theory. Learn by working out what's working and not working by doing something. Mantra number 4 from my cheer squad I have to tell you about is, if not you, who? Now, this digs into a lot of stuff around adaptive leadership that I've spent many, many years in my professional life. But the ultimate element here is that anybody in the position of authority within any organizational, social, community, family system that everyone seems to look to say, hey, they have the answer and they're going to solve the problem or fix the issue, most likely they don't even know it's a problem. And the real leadership is the one who steps to the plate and does something that no one else has noticed needs it doing. Just because you start the change doesn't mean you need to finish it either. Your job is to inspire others to co-create and take stewardship or become a custodian of that change. If not you, who? And the fundamental answer to that question is always you. Don't let perfection become the enemy of good. This is number 5, and it's, these are all my favorite, obviously, because my cheer squad keeps telling me about it. But this is a good one. We often think we need to be perfect in whatever we do, or the change we create, or the change we're trying to implement, or the plan of the change itself, or whatever it might be, has to be perfect in order to start. Do not let perfection be the enemy of good. You're good enough because you started something is always better than the next person who didn't do anything at all. Don't let the perfection be the enemy of good. Mantra number 6. I actually love this one. It's been so helpful to me in my career. Do and decide later. I first learnt this one from Stephanie Burns, who's an adult learning person. And she, in essence, speaks to this notion that we are really good at talking ourselves out of doing something before we even get started. We often give up on something because we don't think we can before we've even decided. Like this notion here of will I do it? Won't I do it? Will I do it? Well, how can we actually know we're doing the right thing unless we've actually done it? This is the logic here. So this notion here of do and decide later. I have to tell my kids this all of the time. How do you actually know that you're like basketball or football, or you like maths, or you like your peas on the plate, unless you give it a go? Don't decide now whether you like it or not when you haven't actually done the thing. Go and do it and then work out whether you like it. Do and decide later. Now, this really serves me well, this particular mantra, and I've done this many times. A very simple example is exercise. Now, I've talked about this on previous podcasts about exercise is my canary in the mine about whether I'm doing well in life and my life is in balance, I've got everything sorted and I'm mentally, emotionally and physically well, is am I exercising regularly enough? Now, I must admit, on certain mornings when it's pretty cold outside in the middle of winter here in Melbourne, I do not, at 6 a.m. when the alarm goes off, I do not want to get out of bed and go and do any exercise. I can decide in the warm confines of my no, today is not exercise day. But that's the wrong attitude. I get out, I go to the end of the block, and I decide then if it's time to do exercise or not. I know this sounds really simple as I say it, but I don't decide when I'm lying in bed and I'm nice and warm and cozy. I get up, I go to the end of the block, I then decide, will I exercise or not? If I decide at that point in time, no, I'm too cold, it's time to go back to bed, it's totally fine, I'm going to do it. I'll go back to bed, I'll lie down, I'll have an extra 30 minutes. But I can tell you what, 9 times out of 10, deciding at the end of the block, will I exercise or not after I've got up and started, I'm pretty much going to keep going at that point in time. Another one from Stephanie Burns I really love and I do all the time, my cheer squad tells me it's one of my personal favorites, is move closer, stay longer. Whenever we're dealing with something that's really difficult and we want to give up and we don't want to continue, just move a little closer to the threshold of uncomfortability of that thing and stay a little bit longer. Stephanie Burns used this really useful metaphor, an example of her own experience in the book when she wrote about this thing. Stephanie Burns has a fear of horses. Now, she really wanted to learn how to ride a horse. So she used to get closer and closer to the horse every single day, stay longer, to the point where she was touching its face and its mane, ultimately got on the horse and then learned how to ride it. But the essence of it is if something scares you and you don't want to do it and you realize it's incredibly important to making your change happen, get closer to the fear. Stay a little longer. Sensitize yourself to the very thing that you don't want to do, to the point where it becomes a natural thing to do. Mantra number 8. Nothing changes until you make a change. I know this is also really simple. If you're waiting for others to make the change that you want to make, you're going to be waiting a very long time. You might as well make the change so that something changes. If you change, if you do something different, the world around you has no other choice than to set up and take notice and work out what you're doing and follow along, or resist, obviously, but follow along and get on board and do something. Now, this one here, I think is an incredibly important one for change makers. I'm so glad that my inner cheer squad made me write it down this morning in my journal, is choose yourself first. Choose yourself first. Now, in airplanes, and many of us haven't been on an airplane for some time, but on airplanes, there's a very important instruction at the beginning to put the face mask on your own face before you put your face mask on others around you. And the same applies in life. If you are completely burnt out or overwhelmed or unable to look after yourself and mentally, emotionally at the end, you cannot help other people. It is not selfish. It is not a selfish act to look after yourself first or choose yourself first. In fact, it's an act of self-compassion and a deep expression of your care for other people, that you care about them enough to look after yourself first, to make sure you're available to them and their future fortunes for a longer period of time. So choose yourself first so you can be fully available to other people for a longer period of time. Number 10, always be creating. The cornerstone of any change effort or change making is the ability to solve problems, to create opportunities, and to see things from a new or a different angle to create or liberate new possibilities or potential. So always be creating. The essence of any change maker is creativity, doing something different. Change making is an act of creativity. They're intertwined. You can't do change making without being creative. So always be creating. And the key thing here is you don't even have to know what you're creating something for when you start. This is like start by starting. Don't worry about having the end in mind. Have the beginning in mind and get going. Number 11, do it for the love of it, not because you have to. Any change you pursue, do it for the love of it. Do it because you want to, not because it's a necessity. This is a similar thing to this always be creating, I think, is you don't need to know why you're creating something all of the time in order to do it. Some of my most amazing changes I've created for myself and for others started out as a personal passion project. In fact, my Positive Changemaker program that I've been running for about 18 months now started out as a personal passion project in the first year of the pandemic in the middle of 2020. And I noticed that my Facebook feed was full of negativity and vitriol. And I thought, I need to change this. I'm going to start putting something positive into my Facebook feed every single day and see if it affected the algorithm in some way in order to get something better. So I had this personal positivity project, the 31 days of abundant positivity. You can download the audio of this particular thing from my website. I'll put the link in the details below. But 31 days of personal positivity. I had so much positive response to that 31 Days, his passion project, that inspired me to start a program around positive change and take much of my work online. So you don't have to know at the beginning what something's going to be for, but I tell you what, about halfway through, you will. Positive mantra number 12. Once you start, do not stop. It's incredibly challenging to start something new. You probably experienced this. The first step, it feels like a song here. The first step is always the hardest. The first step is always the hardest. And once you start and you gain momentum, maintain momentum at all costs. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting here that you burn yourself out. Remember, choose yourself first. Face mask on yourself first. But if you feel like momentum is coming hard or is becoming harder, make the move smaller. Make the action even smaller and more frequent. I'll talk about this as I'm pretty sure at another one. I wrote a little bit more about this later, but you have to keep going once you start. If this positive change is so important for yourself and for the world, it deserves to be realized. Don't give up. If you think it's getting hard, do things in smaller increments more frequently to build the positive energy you need in order to keep going. Now, of course, you can always ask other people to give you a hand as well, and I'll talk about that later as well. Number 13, it's related. When you feel stuck, think big, plan small, go faster. When you're feeling stuck about things, it's often because you're not seeing enough of the bigger picture. The bigger picture might be the larger system in play or more of time, past, present, or future. Whatever that bigger picture for you is, see the bigger picture. Once you see it, you will know what to do. Then plan small, micro moves done consistently and well will make a massive difference. Make things smaller, and then once you make them smaller, go faster. Cycle more quickly so that you can have more positive momentum and get the positive energy through those successes. Number 14, positive mantra, number 14. Change is always more fun with friends. I've talked about this before in my previous podcast, but who is your posse to do this change with? You don't have to do everything alone. You don't have to think that you're the only one that understands the problem well or deep enough in order to do something about it. You don't. You can always do things with others. Like I personally have a personal commitment that if I'm about to start a positive change that impacts other people and isn't just something for me personally, I will not do it alone. I have a personal commitment to myself that I won't start a change that unless I have at least 2 or 3 other people willing to jump in that boat with me and start heading for the other shore. I'm not prepared to do it. It's too hard to do it alone. Collaboration, shared process is a fundamental to having positive change that works. Positive mantra number 15. Now, I share this quite a lot in my positive change maker program, but you always have more power than you realize. Every single time I've doubted myself, or I'm not sure I can do it, I have permission, or it's right, I remember my personal cheer squad is adamant on this. I always have more personal power to influence or the capacity or the skill I need in order to create that positive change. The challenge is many of us, including myself, compare myself to others doing really cool things or really amazing changes and go, I can't do that. I'm not as good as them. I'm not as capable as them. Without ever remembering that we've done some pretty cool things ourselves and we are always the change maker we are looking for. Certainly, it is important to compare ourselves to other people, but only to learn and grow. We don't compare ourselves in a way to constrain our own potential and to think we're not ready, good enough, or whatever it might be. We're only doing it as a way to inspire ourselves that I can do that too, and to get on it and do it. Simple patterns repeated is number 16. Don't think too far ahead in change. Like every single time I get ahead of myself, start to dream too far ahead, I get frustrated about change. Simple patterns repeat. Don't think too far ahead about the large, cool, super amazing change you're going to make. Just imagine or trying to imagine all scenarios and try and work out all options. Nature has a pretty simple principle here, whether it be an animal or a plant or a tree. They have simple patterns that they engage in when navigating or changing or evolving. Like think about leaves on a tree. They all look pretty similar. It's not like a tree has 20 different variants of a leaf. It's the same format every single time. Think about a cactus or the repetition of your succulent. They're ever expanding out from the central source, doing the same thing again and again and again and again, and getting larger and more sophisticated along the way, but it's the same pattern repeated. Get the simplest rhythm you can and do it again and again and again. Like, what is the heartbeat of your change? There's the do, the do, the do, the pulse of any change that allows you to keep going again and again and again. That is the essence of any successful change. Number 17. I tell you what, I feel like I've said this to myself and to other people so many times. Be patient. Don't set an expectation for something happening in a certain time frame or a certain way. You'll always be disappointed. Be patient. Anything worth doing always takes as long as you want and half as long as it needs. So be patient. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on others. Don't give up on the potential of your positive change. Things always take longer than you want, but half as long as they need to truly get the real benefit of whatever change you're coming about. Number 18. Oh, I wish I listened to this more often, actually. This particular one that my cheer squad said I really need to talk about was keep it simple. Don't overcook the solution. How many times have we set about trying to do something, trying to keep it simple, and very quickly, like in a heartbeat nearly, the change or the process or the plan or the solution or whatever it might be is way too sophisticated, more complex than we can ever imagine. One of my mentors once told me this really earlier. I said, I've got this plan. It's still a plan. 1,000,001 ideas for the future of humanity. This is an ultimate metric of my work around positive change, is supporting the creation and implementation of 1,000,000 ideas for the future of humanity. And I said to my mentor, I've got this plan. Here it is. And I mapped out this thing on an A4 piece of paper, and her eyes were glazing over. And she says, I have no idea what you're talking about. And if I don't understand it, I can't help you. Keep it simple. Don't overcook a solution. The simplest first step, get other people to help you. Number 19. To create enduring change, you have to be prepared to crack a few eggs. Like, I know this is a really simple thing, but if you're going to do something that's going to be wicked awesome and change the world, to really make people's lives better, some people are going to not like that. Some people are going to be frustrated. They might even be your haters. Like on my social media feed, this happens a lot. I have people telling me, particularly when I'm doing a launch and I'm sort of putting myself out there and saying, hey, I can really help make a change for you and help you do that. I have people that make some comments that aren't really that pleasant, but it's because I'm doing something and they're not. You have to be prepared to crack a few eggs or break you through eggs if you're truly trying to get change happening. Number 20. Now, if this is one thing I could say, of all of these things, all of these positive mantras my cheer squad said I had to tell you about: proceed until apprehended, just start by starting, learn by doing, if not you, who, don't let perfection become the enemy of good, do and decide later, move closer, stay longer. Nothing changes until you make a change. Choose yourself first. Always be creating. Do it for the love of it, not because you have to. Once you start, never stop, unless it makes no sense to keep going, obviously. When you're stuck, think big, plan small, go faster. Change, more fun with friends. You always have more power than you realize. Simple patterns repeated. Be patient. Anything worth doing takes time. Keep it simple. Don't overcook the solution. And number 19, to create enduring change, you need to break a few eggs along the way. Number 20, this one here, the most important one, I reckon. Finally, you have to accept that failure is learning. To become a wise person We have to fail a lot. We don't become wise by being right all the time. We become wise by making mistakes, learning what doesn't work, and realizing the variations of ways of thinking about something, and knowing of all of the options we could do, this is the right one for the now. And we only know of all of those options because we tried lots of them. Sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't, and we know the nuances of everything. Failure is learning. It's not failure. Failure is learning. To become wise, we have to fail often. That's what my cheer squad, my inner cheer squad said in my journal this morning. I have to tell you about. Hope one or more of these positive personal mantras for sustaining positive change hit you with a heartstring and said, that is the one for me. Let me know what you think. Which one or more of these positive mantras sticks with you? If you apply it, see what happens. Let me know how you go. Until next time. Hi, and thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Positive Change Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe using the button below, and make sure you also click the bell icon to get notified every time we release a new episode. If you're looking for the show notes for this episode, we have them in the link underneath, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and other offers that we drop from time to time to help you go from overwhelmed to thriving in pursuing your best life. So go ahead and check out this episode's show notes if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning into the Positive Change Podcast.